Good morning, distinguished guests. I'm very delighted and honored to be invited to the first Bayes IT Research and Innovation Week. I think it's a very noble innovation, and we need it at this critical time. Thank you very much. I will get on straight to my presentation today. And I find myself in the midst of eminent speakers. My topic today is youth, digital platforms, and the post-pandemic world. I've been asked to look at this topic because of my experience with dealing with young people over the last decade in terms of sports and digital platforms. And hopefully I'll be able to do justice to this topic and be able to look at what today is and what the future holds for us. So today, from our checklist, we will cover digital transformations and their role in the birth of digital platforms. We'll look at the definitions, uses, and some examples of digital platforms. And then communities and the role they play for the digital platforms. And then we'll look at the problems faced by the Nigerian youth and probably some solutions that we'll cover so the discussion can be ongoing. So you can start. Thank you very much. Looking at what we're talking about, next slide, please. Okay, so we try to make the presentation as interesting as possible so that it's not too much of literature, but some interesting pictures. I'm sure you can recognize some iconic images with people who are familiar with Bitcoin. You can see the sign there. So you look at almost all organizations in existence are currently undergoing some form of digital transformation. And I would say if I were to pick a number, it would be 9 out of 10 business organizations. Medium-sized companies, your average small businesses are all undergoing some kind of digital transformation. As a matter of fact, one can confidently say the entire world has been undergoing its own digital transformation over the past few decades as technology has advanced in leaps and bounds. Embracing the digital world is all about mandatory for organizations considering where we find ourselves today, and it shows no sign of slowing. It is really at a breakneck speed, and evidently we're not going to return back to those days that we know. So you look at the rise of crypto, the NFT space, cloud, Web3, and most recently metaverse. Then you understand that some of the terminologies are even too fast for the living. So basically, going digital is the only way to keep up with the rapid pace of the modern world, achieving the speed and agility necessary for competing today. In today's business environment, requires you to undergo a digital transformation. According to BMC blog, it defines digital transformation as the use of new, fast, frequently changing digital technology to solve problems. The idea of digital transformation is apt in terms of what it is, but it fails to provide any real guidance on how to achieve digital transformation. Digital transformation does involve the application of new technology. Bringing all operations onto the cloud, that will not magically solve or empower your organization with some sort of digital wizardry as expected. But you must change, and you must understand how that transformation will help you change. Undergoing digital transformation requires the organization to change its approach to virtually everything it does. In this slide, I'm showing you something. This is a typical walk-in barbershop as it is today. And you look at the next picture beside it, it's a mobile barbershop. So imagine the transformation you will go through in terms of moving from a traditional barbershop to a mobile barbershop. It means your mindset, your payment platforms, and your customers will see you differently. So that is a typical example of digital transformation. And you look at this slide also, and what they are in terms of what it is today and what you need to be tomorrow. So you must understand what digital transformation is, and then you look at how organizations from different nations as a whole look at how it will transform their business, their lives, and their community. So here we look at digital platforms. How do they work? According to the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation, ITIF, they explain digital platforms as online businesses that facilitate commercial interactions between at least two different groups, with one typically being the supplier and the other being the consumer. So it is imperative to understand that the communities that interact with these platforms themselves are essential pieces of the digital platform. Without that community, the digital platform has little inherent value and will cease to exist. So you ask, what are the uses of this digital platform? XenonStack.com states very clearly that the main aim of digital platform is to enhance the collaboration between end users and producers to transact with each other. These platforms enable users to share different information like new products, services, and connect to the platform's ecosystem. As you can see from this slide, the entire concept is not a new one. Of a platform is not a new one. For example, the shopping malls, job placement services, and newspaper classified ads have been long part of our economy. There is a well-established literature on the nature and role of these platforms, with the consensus being that they offer both seller and buyer tremendous benefit, largely by reducing the transaction cost of finding other parties to interact with. Digital platforms have experienced significant growth in adoption, diversity, and innovation in the past decade. These digital platforms have grown for several reasons, including increases in internet adoption, the maturation of online advertising industry, and the growth of cloud computing. A rapid rise in smartphone ownership has also provided consumers greater access to digital. So let's take a look at some of these examples of the digital platforms we're talking about. On the social media side of these platforms, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have LinkedIn. On the digital media platforms, we have YouTube for streaming videos, we have Spotify, we have Apple Music. These are hugely popular platforms. On the technology platform side, we have the Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and then we have Twilio. E-commerce platforms, we have Jumia, Konga, AliExpress, Amazon, and eBay. These are just a few examples of the more popular ones that we know. So you ask yourself, the communities, let's talk about the communities that use these platforms. Because without communities, these platforms don't make much sense. So we ask ourselves, in definition, in our definition, we talked about communities being the backbones of digital platforms. Without communities, it is obvious that these platforms would not thrive long enough to exist. Take a moment and visualize Facebook with no faces. Would you be interested to be part of the community of Facebook if you can't see the faces of the users? I don't think so. Or Instagram, if probably you posted your picture on Instagram and nobody liked it or followed you or gave you a request, I think it will die a natural death. With Jumia, imagine you don't have any buyers on Jumia. It will die a natural death. Or Twitter, without the banter that it attracts. And you look at the current situation in Nigeria with Twitter. It is currently banned, but yet there are Nigerians on Twitter and they find their way around it. That is remarkable. That is how strong the Nigerian Twitter community is and what we mean when we say communities are the blood that gives these platforms life. Communities are the people who keep digital platforms up and running. Let's look at the numbers within these communities now. So if you look at this very interesting graph, from 1991 to date, the number of websites have risen steadily from 1 to 1.9 billion. Imagine the number, 1.9 billion currently. With Google, as of May this year, being the most visited website with 90.89 billion visits. That is astonishing. That is a staggering number, and that is unimaginable. YouTube comes in a second with a little more than a third of Google's weight at approximately 35 billion. 35 billion visits, or hits, as you may call them. Facebook comes third with 22.38 billion. So let's look at the global internet users to date. If you look at this information, it is incredible also. As of December 1995, there were only 16 million people using the internet. That was 0.4% of the world's population. Then in 1997, more people got into it, and it went from 16 million in 95 to 70 million. From there, the numbers kept increasing in leaps and bounds. And now, 65.6% of the world's population is on the internet, at approximately 5.2 billion users. So to answer the question, how do communities keep digital platforms on and going? They do so by making use of them. And that answers you. Still on communities. With this, you can see how the communities make use of these platforms. In this chart, you can see the famous ones within a 60-second period, how these platforms are being used. And take these numbers. They're unbelievable. If you look at how many tweets go in per minute, 87,500, it's incredible. Facebook has 1 million clicks every minute. Tinder has 1.4 million swipes. Between Facebook and WhatsApp Messenger, there were 41.6 million messages sent per minute. That is incredible. And take the shopping cart, which is places like Amazon. $996 million were spent in a minute. So you look at post-pandemic, the stats show you that in a minute, in 2021, Tinder went up to 2 million from the 1.4 we're talking about. So that tells you a story about post-pandemic, how these digital platforms have even grown in leaps and bounds. So imagine the magnitude of information that is being passed around every single minute. I think that is fascinating. So you ask yourself, who makes up these communities? Who makes up these communities? Let's look at the demographic. And as they say, data doesn't lie. You can see that we've agreed that communities are internet users, the consumers. This was the age distribution of internet users as of 2019 globally. With this chart, what this chart shows you is that the highest users of digital platforms are aged between 25 and 34 years old. They hold 32% of the total population. The next biggest users are those aged between 35 and 44. They hold 19% of that total population of digital platform users. Next comes the 18 to 24-year-olds, making up 18% of the total users of these platforms. The last three positions are held strongly by the 45 to the 54-year-olds with 14%. The 55 to the 64-year-olds are not too far behind with 10%. And finally, the 65s and above, who make up just 7% of the internet users. The group that impressed me the most is the 18 to 24, with just 18%. These are our youth, the immediate users of tomorrow. So let's look at what defines the youth. Who are they? According to the UN Habitat Youth Fund, it defines youth as people who are aged between 15 to 32 years old. The African Youth Charter rather defines the youth of a society as anyone between the age of 15 to 35, with a slight difference. The Nigerian federal government, according to the new youth policy, defines its nation's youth as citizens who are aged between 18 to 29. So let's have a look at the numbers and what they represent. This shows you the number of internet users in Nigeria between 2017 to 2026. And you can see the numbers are going up and up and up. According to Statista, let's compare these numbers. As of August 24th, 2021, there are 108 million users in Nigeria that are on the internet. By any standard, that is a lot. So it shows you that this infographic shows the annual digital growth recorded in Nigeria between 2020 and 2020. In the last 12 months, between 2020 and 2021, upwards of 5.2 million Nigerians were added onto the internet. And 17 million people acquired mobile computers. 19 million people joined the internet bandwagon, and 6 million people became active on social media. So you look at the year-on-year change in key indicators of digital adaptation. When you look at our total population, mobile connections, internet users, and active social media users, the numbers just keep going up. And you must adopt a digital transformation. When you see these numbers, they just go by. The next slide will show you a share of web traffic by device. And what do you see in this slide? It tells you everything. That even the laptops and computers are no more in fashion. The tablets are extinct, and other devices are even dead. It's all being done on the mobile phone. So when you look at this, it shows you that everybody wants content on his mobile phone. And that's what you need to give to them. So with the next slide, you can see top websites visited by traffic. This is a ranking, if you look at it. It's incredible when you look at Google stands at number 1 with 220 million visits. And this even breaks it down to show you time per visit, page per visit. It's incredible. The analytics show you everything. Then comes Bet Niger in second, which is a gambling site at 86 million. Facebook is third at 48 million. Nairaland at 30 million. YouTube at 25. You see Wikipedia 7th at 20 million. And then another Bet King, which is a gambling site at 19.9. And Live Score is a instant football app that shows you. And then you see the famous Linda Ikeji on 13.8 million. This tells you a lot. So at any given time, according to data, there are 33 million people actively using any kind of social media platforms. That is about 15.8% of our population. When you do the math, you see the numbers of social media users increase by 22% within a year, taking the total number of social media users on mobile phone to 32 million. It's incredible. Then we look at the next slide. This is the traffic share by device, age, gender. It breaks it down further. So you look at Google in number 1, 85.3%. Computer is 14.7%. And it even shows you the female part of it is 42.6 million, while the male stands at 57.4. And then it breaks it down to the age. 18 to 24 have 17.4% of that, while 25 to 34 are 32%. And then you can look at the numbers. They just show you everything. And it further breaks it down to tell you what is happening in that space. So if you look at the e-commerce part of numbers that we're looking at, in 2020, $1.7 billion was spent on travel, mobility, and accommodation, despite the fact there was a lockdown. Women, as usual, spent the most money in Nigeria on fashion and beauty items during the lockdown. I'm surprised. Where were the ladies going during the lockdown? But that's where they spent the money. I guess they were buying, hoping the world wouldn't end in 2021, as it does not. We continue to live despite the COVID. So it's very weird how everyone thinks. Men have the most money, but data always points to the opposite. Women spend more money than men. So if we go on to this slide, as of January 2021, WhatsApp is the highest. 93% of people aged 16 to 64 that has used the platform in the past month. This is incredible, these numbers. I mean, everybody uses WhatsApp. You even prefer to get messages sent to you to WhatsApp rather than your emails anymore. So WhatsApp has really taken over, and it's a clear leader, if you can see. But you take a look at LinkedIn, Telegram, they all can compare, but they're very distant behind. So these numbers are the most interesting part of this presentation. The numbers are just so evident, and you look at how, in this slide also on the e-commerce spend category, how we've spent in billions of dollars. These figures are Nigeria, and these are current figures, and they are astonishing. How much we've spent on these items in supposedly the COVID time. So you can imagine that these platforms have become so powerful, so strong, so influential that there's no going back. It's either you join the bandwagon or you die. So if you look at social media advertising audience, this is also a very interesting chart for you to see according to demographics. So we come to youth, digital platforms, and digital economies. I think you can all see this number. This is an incredible number. This is the value of the global digital economy, $11.5 trillion. Don't even try to convert this to Naira. I don't think there's any computer system or calculator that can give you the actual amount of this. This is astonishing. So you can imagine the value of this economy, and you ask yourself, where are you in this economy? How many percent of this do you want to tap? What is the future of your business, of your organization? You being onto this moving train, the unstoppable train, 11.5 trillion. That's why you see all the newest billionaires in the world are in the digital economy space. So if you have big aspirations of being rich, successful, you must think digital transformation, you must think digital economy. From most of the figures shown so far, it is obvious that our digital economy is more useful than one would think. New digital industries are emerging as a result of new users generating content online. The growth of these industries is powered by the useful economy, mostly as seen by the data I have provided. The global spread of the internet, massive adoption of mobile devices, and consolidation of digital platforms have given rise to a digital economy that is humongous, in which youth with access to the requisite technology and skill can participate as consumers, as producers, and as users. The youth who are able to leverage such opportunities can engage in capital-enhancing activities such as working for companies like Google, Paystack, Stripe, Microsoft, and so on. They might experience better career options and improve their employability working from anywhere in the world, or better still, they could start their business or their companies and create jobs for helping others. Helping the nation get closer to attaining some of the sustainable development goals like SDG 1, which clearly shows you no poverty, SDG 2, zero hunger, SDG 3, good health and well-being, SDG 4, quality education, 5, gender equality, 8, decent work and economic growth, 9, industry innovation and infrastructure, 10, reduced inequalities, 17, partnership for the goals. Unfortunately, the digital economy is not equally accessible to all youth. Young people continue to face structural inequalities across race, gender, national origin, age, socioeconomic status, geography, that limit access to the skills and opportunities needed for their successes. The ability of youth to realize economic opportunities on digital platforms depends on their motivation and skill, but most importantly, it depends on their access to economic, social, and technological resources. So this is a good question. What are the problems faced by Nigerian youth? Nigeria is the most populous black nation in the world, home to over 200 million people. Precisely, it says 208 million, with an annual population growth of 2.6%. Bearing in mind that the global population growth is at 1.05%. So it tells you Nigeria is growing at double what the world is growing. And that tells you a big story. This makes Nigeria's population quite youthful, especially with a median age of 18 years old. Although Nigeria has abundant oil and gas resources, I believe the energy that will power Nigeria into a prosperous future will come from a teeming, vibrant youth. However, despite its enterprise, energy, and dynamism, this generation of the Nigerian youth may not see the change it needs without harnessing the power of digital platforms that are available, going beyond to even create their own platforms. As you can see, in the not too distant past, with companies such as Paystack, Helium Health that I showed you, PiggyVest, RiseVest, and Trove, these companies have raised capital and gone on to employ fellow Nigerian youth. But with our current population growth rate, more needs to be done to avert the disaster that lurks ahead. In fact, statistics show a worrisome escalation in the rate of employment in Nigeria. According to Quartz Africa, Nigeria's unemployment rate has more than tripled in the last 5 years, combined with grossly inadequate physical infrastructure, rising inflation, and a political system that cannot ensure justice and inclusion. Nigerian youth unemployment problem portends a bleak future with millions of angry, frustrated youth. When one has an in-depth look at this unemployment rate tripling, you trace it to the fact that 1 in every 5 children are out of school in the world. According to UNICEF, which means that out of 5 kids that are out of school around the world, 1 is in Nigeria. That is disheartening, a statistic. This is according to UNICEF, which is reliable data. A few days ago, our former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, made a statement, and it was carried in one of the most popular newspapers in Nigeria. And when you take a look at this, it is a very scary situation. And this is the plight of our education and of the Nigerian youth. So it's not all doom and gloom. We ask, what could be the solution to this problem? And that is why we are here, to research, to innovate, and to come up with solutions. According to Nigeria's Ministry of Trade and Investment, Nigeria has over 37 million medium small-scale enterprises that account for more than 84% of jobs in the country. This is very, very, very interesting. This data gives you a direction about the reality of our situation. And if we're looking for solutions, then we know where it lies. They account for also 48.5% of the GDP of our country, as well as 7.2% of goods and services exported out of the country. This shows you that the average youth in Nigeria is willing to work hard to achieve his or her goals and create wealth for themselves, even when they live in poor conditions. Young people in Nigeria are putting innovative ideas to work. They're leveraging on the opportunity provided by the internet to get access to information, education, and collaboration with others across the world. In the perfect world, I would propose that government be solely responsible for designing and executing solutions to the problem faced by the Nigerian youth. But as it stands, our government needs our help, and it is everybody's problem. Private individuals, businesses, NGOs have to work together to solve the problem. The first solution I would proffer would be free education for the Nigerian child up to the secondary school level. If an individual cannot read, like I said earlier, how will he or she be able to utilize the full potential of the digital platform? So education is extremely important, being able to read or write. The acquisition of education is something that should be made compulsory in Nigeria. Each child should be given access to free and quality education to relieve the burden borne by his or her parents. The second will be empowerment in form of training sessions for the Nigerian youth to have access to free computer systems, mobile devices, and affordable internet. These training sessions will be able to teach them basic knowledge on how to operate these devices and use them to their full capacity. It will also teach them how to leverage the access these devices give to digital platforms in order to educate themselves. You have things like Udemy, YouTube, Mock, Canvas Student, Coursera, edX. These are all very, very interesting platforms to learn. And to generate legitimate income, you have the likes of Jumia, Konga, Gigi. People sell things on Instagram, on Facebook, even on TikTok. Extracurricular instruction that target skills, focus, employability skills, interviewing to entrepreneurship to vocational education, including opportunities in the green economy. Ideally, in the future, these kinds of education will be embedded into our national curriculum, tackling the skills gap. The third solution will be youth access to capital. For young people keen to get startups funded, they don't have to rely on banks alone and difficult to get grants. Crowdfunding sites like kiva.org and networks like Youth Business International give young people all over the world the chance to get the support they need to build their enterprise and increase their incomes. With more programs like this being created every day, the future will be bright for aspiring young entrepreneurs. The fourth solution we looked at is universal access to internet, which is critical. And when we say access to internet, we mean affordable. With programs like Facebook's internet.org working towards free internet access to key sites and computer aiding, providing IT education across 32 countries, this solution to the digital divide is coming good. However, infrastructure development is necessary, it's important, it's critical. Electrical grids, it is obviously key to this goal. Once you don't have power, then this will not happen. As low-income nations develop these sectors, the digital divide will continue to be bridged. The fifth and final solution I would suggest will be skills matching. The private sector Government and education system need to start collaborating to determine what knowledge and skill young people should be taught in order to find rewarding work generally. Considering businesses are suffering from the skills mismatch too, they need to take a more active role in promoting appropriate education and skill building. For young people from an early age, taking into consideration the global shift to digitization as they build curriculums for education, skills acquisition. So as I conclude, this is an interesting slide. Yes, we have oil, but what do we do when it is exhausted? And when we cannot sell it anymore? This is the question. We've all seen the giant strides that automotive companies are making to go green. So many electric cars are being manufactured right now, with Tesla being the most popular. There's Rivian, Faraday, Neo, there's Lucid, some of the Chinese ones, Olinger, and Canoe for the new ones, and old manufacturers are not being left behind. With Hyundai, Skoda, Fiat, Porsche, Audi, giving the newbies a run for their money. There was a time when we had granite pyramids in Kano. We used to be the biggest exporters of cocoa and rubber at some point in time too. The point I'm trying to drive at is, yes, we have huge oil reserve. Yes, we're making profit from it. However, I believe that Nigeria's future lies in innovation and progress. For this to happen, we need the best minds and the best hearts to come together and work towards a common goal, which is investing in the future of our country by diversifying our portfolio and including digital assets to it. The best way to do this is by investing in our youth, their interest in the digital space, creating an enabling environment for them to learn, grow, and thrive. Some months ago, a company called Stripe, it offers digital payment services on their platform internationally, acquired a Nigerian company called Paystack. I'm sure a lot of you heard it already in the news. Paystack also offers the same services on their Nigerian platform. And Stripe paid $200 million for Paystack. That is incredible. And I can tell you, young people started Paystack, they did it, and that is the success stories that we're all proud of. It was indeed a proud moment for every Nigerian. There are currently a lot of companies receiving venture support in Nigeria who have created various digital platforms to service the nation and West Africa too, made possible by resilient young people who have refused to allow their situation or the situation in the country bring them down or dampen the zest they have for life. We must all stay focused and driven if we're to accomplish anything of value as a nation. It is hurtful to see other nations absorb our talented youth because they see the potential we have, just because we have refused to show them that we see them too. We appreciate them. We love them. Young people in Nigeria do not need too much from anyone. They are self-sufficient. Just give them light, water, a roof over their heads, an enabling policy, and watch them bloom. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I hope I delivered on this. Thank you.